So I've got the first agenda item. So I just wanted to share some of the initial feedback we've gotten from sales and the marketing team. Now that we've publicly announced the acquisition, we started talking to the sales and the field staff, about what this means. A lot of enthusiasm around it. People seem really excited about bringing new capabilities, new technology to customers. You'll most likely see a lot of new faces popping in the Fuzzing Slack channel. So those are going to be people that have seen the announcements and have questions. And it's, in my opinion, really great that we are seeing the enthusiasm we are, because it's going to be great once we have version 1, we can start engaging with customers and giving it to them.
I think this came up on one of the calls about whether there'd be a new GitLab tier. I don't know if there's been any other discussion of that or whether that was just kind of someone's idea.
I have not seen anything concrete in terms of a new tier. I think that was probably just an idea or a discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing in relation to fuzz testing though. James, you've got the next one.
Yeah, tomorrow I'm doing a walkthrough of PyTest Auto Explorer. It was a proof of concept plugin to PyTest that I wrote that used existing Python or PyTest unit tests to determine basically starting points for fuzzing and other exploration methods, right? And the other ones in this case being SMT solving. But yeah, so this will be a walkthrough of that proof of concept, and it is something that I am building on, and I will be applying similar concepts to Go and Ruby. Oh, I've got the next one too. So I have been working on some dog fooding or getting that set up. GitLab Runner, it's a Go project. Generally, if I understand, or my current understanding of GitLab Runner is that it has its own API that it uses. That's how you talk to it. And so I realize it may work well with API fuzzing as well as coverage fuzzing. To fuzz the kind of inner aspects quickly of GitLab Runner, we could skip the API part and jump straight to the commands that it does based off of the requests it receives. But then we could also fuzz the API. I don't have a proof of concept working on that one yet, but I'm still doing research and trying to figure out the best way to hook into it. And the fuzzing GitLab CI.yaml, I started on this one. I'm further along on it because I personally ran into an issue with this, and I already had code set up to start testing it, but it is working. I need to put it into a CI job. But yeah, I have Ruby code that uses some Rust code that I wrote to generate data from a grammar, and then it tests here, I can link to the actual file. It tests the YAML parsing to make, let's see, it's not expecting memory corruption errors. It tests the YAML parsing for any errors that aren't raised as a validation error. And that's what would cause a 500 server error. And that's what I had run into a few times. And the ticket there is for the one that I've found. And it is, I haven't fully implemented the grammar for GitLab CI.yaml. So it's not fuzzing all the features, but most of it is there. And I'm going to show, here it is, okay. If you're curious, this is where it actually calls into the YAML parser. And that's about it.
Pretty cool. We found an actual bug already.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect. And this is the one I ran into manually. So it wasn't a new one. I ran into this just trying to use GitLab's YAML. And yeah, but it was reassuring though that the fuzzer found it. And I added a test case minimization. So we've got a super minimal test case for the team.
And so I see that you wrote it in Rust, and maybe I missed it. How did you link with the parsing library, or is it in some kind of RPC or? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So let's see. I made a Ruby gem that loads. How do I say it? All right. So I made a Ruby gem that loads a Rust library. So it's a native Ruby extension that uses my grammar fuzzing code. So the grammar fuzzer is something that I've been doing for fun, and I wrote it in Rust, and so I already had it, and it's fast, and so I use it. But yeah, so the code that I linked, that YAMLfuzz.rb, it loads the Ruby gem that I created with the native extension, and then calls functions on that to generate the data.
And I mean, like, where is the where is the GitLab code? Okay, so the GitLab code essentially is located at the YAMLfuzz.rb, right?
Oh, the GitLab code that is being fuzzed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that is found in GitLab. So I haven't added much documentation to this at all. You run this by having a full setup instance of GitLab, like with the GitLab development, with the GitLab SDK. The GDK, GitLab Development Kit. Yeah. Once that's up and running, if you can run normal unit tests on that project, then you can run this. It needs a database up, and it needs a few other things. So it's not quite that complicated, and you run it, or it's not that simple. You run it using the Rails runner command, and that runs this script within the Rails context with all of the dependencies loaded.
Yeah, I got it. So it's a grammar fuzzer. It's not coverage guided, right? It's just trying random grammar valid grammar. Okay. Now I understand. Yeah, great.
And all the results from this are just being stored as your own artifacts. They're not going into a library that would put them as a JSON file for us. Is that correct?
Yeah. Right now, this is just running locally on my machine.
Right.
I haven't set it up to run in GitLab yet, and that's kind of the next step. I've been working on trying to boost performance a little bit, but really I'm focusing now on just finishing the grammar, making sure it's able to generate YAML that hits all the features. But yeah, and then I'll put it in GitLab. So it'll have like a scheduled job that runs on the latest GitLab every night or something.
Yeah, because I think from what we're trying to do is figuring out how much of this could get codified into like the CLI tool, right? Or if these crashes or any of this errors can get into our JSON file that can then show up on the dashboard, right? So that ideally the code that you're writing is just minimal code, and then all the other infrastructure is what we want GitLab to handle, so that you've got a fraction of the amount of work to actually implement this type of thing.
Yeah, and it is an interesting dogfooding example, and I haven't touched it since mid last week, besides pushing up the code this morning. And the reason for that is I don't think that its use case fits in with our MVC, because it is not directly API fuzzing. It's not the feedback or coverage driven fuzzing, where we already know how to parse the output and generate the JSON file. It's definitely useful, but it's not plug and play from a user perspective.
I think it will be quite complex to for at least for MVC to dogfood it into our CLI. Probably it will be best like for dogfooding, writing like a super standard libfuzzer or gofuzz targets. So this will be the best way to dogfood.
That being said, I could make it generate a JSON file. JSON's straightforward, and if it matches, then it'll show up in the dashboard. So
it will. I mean, it will work. It just of course. I mean, we can also do that in the future. I just think that for the MVC, probably like a standard libfuzzer, because I already tested it with libfuzzer, but later we can also integrate it with this. With the grammar parser, as long as it outputs a JSON, it should work essentially.
Yeah, Yep, exactly. So yeah, right now I am focusing more on GitLab Runner and trying to figure out the best way for us to do that one. But this one was pretty quick to stand up. All right, that's it.
Very cool. So the next one I had was, I know there was some discussion on naming from last week. Haven't caught up on all the issues. Just wanted to see, we're naming our variables and so on and so forth in the repos based on API fuzzing and coverage guided. So I just wanted to see if there's any direction change or whether we should keep moving ahead. And I think Sam, you said to keep moving ahead.
Yeah, let's keep on this path for now. If we need to rediscuss as we bring new stuff into the product in the future, we can certainly talk about it. But for now, let's keep on these two.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to confirm that because it's certainly a lot easier to change names now than
definitely.
when doing it later. But if we're good, we'll keep moving forward. And then the next item, Evgeny, I just wanted to make sure, I think there was some discussion on Slack about the demo for the customer advisory board. Wanted to see if you had any questions for that, if you needed any additional information from Sam or from anyone else.
Yeah, so actually the demo is ready. I didn't record it yet because I thought that it might be worth first going through the demo live so we can get some comments, and then I'll do a recording. So maybe we can do that either now or if we have time, or tomorrow. We can do that now, I think, if we have time, but we can also, let's see if someone else has questions, and then we'll jump into the demo maybe.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, that sounds good with me.
And then James, I just see, I think you had the last item right here. Just a plan to sync up with Mike.
Yep, exactly. This is on my radar too. It's something that, was it last week? There was something else that came up where I said I could help set up the dog fooding for API fuzzing. And I haven't synced up with you yet, Mike. So yeah, I'll do that today, sync up and figure out what we need to do to get that going.
Perfect, sounds good. Any other items to go over? If not, we can jump into a demo. Sounds good. Yeah, if anyone needs to drop off, feel free to, but we'll jump into the demo.
Cool. So so this is, so I'll share my screen. Yeah, so this is the first demo of a merge request that is currently being reviewed. So
Evgeny, before you keep going, I don't know if it's possible to lower your screen resolution. I can see it just fine, but for the recording, when you're at a really high resolution, it's hard to see.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a quick thing to do.
Let's try. Or can I just zoom in, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep. I think that should work.
That works too.
Okay. Yeah,
it's easier solution.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So okay. So this is a demo of continuous fuzzing integration, and this is on my local instance with a merge request that is currently being reviewed. Okay, yeah, never mind. I'll put a link to the merge request later. So here we have GitLab CI.yaml. Second. Yeah, the local instance is slow sometimes. Okay, so how it looks like is that we have to include a template coverage. We added a new template to the base GitLab Ruby backend. It's called coverage fuzzing GitLab. And what we need to do in order to essentially to run our fuzz tests in the CI is to add a new stage, fuzz stage. And for each fuzz target, we need to create a new fuzz target or fuzz function. It's the same thing. So for each step, we need to create step for that fuzz function, and it will extend fuzz, something that's called fuzz base, and this is essentially included in the parent template. Okay, we have, I already uploaded a handy Docker image. So we will have handy Docker images under GitLab cov fuzz. Those they won't include any. They won't include our CLI. They will just include like our CLI will be downloaded in real time, at least for now. We can discuss it later. I have good reasons for that, but the handy images are to have built the fuzzers built in, because it takes a lot of steps usually takes a lot of steps to install the fuzzers, like installing LLVM or installing libfuzzer inside with Golang. Like it takes a lot of steps. So here I have Golang with GoFuzz already available, and in the script, those are standard steps that you can find in GoFuzz documentation. And then we will run. The user will have to run essentially the fuzz target with this prefix. Maybe I can change it just to this prefix. Yeah, I think it's not needed, as actually it's also it checks the environment variables as well. So this is how the YAML will look like for one fuzz target.
Where's the CLI installed?
So yeah, so the coverage fuzzing is downloading this, because
in
CLI
that template.
Yeah, the reason for that is that CLI is just one binary, one small Go binary, and pushing, like we will have a lot of handy Docker images that contains the like libfuzzer or contain GoFuzz, contains AFL, and creating all those Docker images every time we create a new release just consumes more time and resources, but we can do that as well. Like we can have the
the binary is pretty small, right?
Yeah, it is. So okay, so now if we will go to CI/CD, we have a fuzzing session, so we can see this is commit to master and this is a merge request. So here I just push something to master, and we have let's go to this pipeline. Yeah, so we have a fuzzing stage, and we have this function, like this step. This is a step for our fuzz function, and we can see that we can see all the logs, of course, just like in any other step, and we can see the libfuzzer, GoFuzz, and libfuzzer target running here, and essentially crashing, finding a new crash. So currently, all the crashes and the test cases that the fuzzer generated can be found and downloaded here, just like I showed in the previous demo. I also save a copy of the fuzzer. We can decide if we want to keep it or not. I thought it will be a good way to keep it, because then the user will be able to also to reproduce it locally with the CLI, because we save everything, including the fuzzer. So here are the crashes. Here's the corpus. Yeah, and if we go to sorry.
And so if it finds a crash, it fails the job. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. 1 second. Yeah. The jobs in the pipeline is a bit confusing. So here we have the security. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. So here we have the security dashboard in the pipeline. And so we have a new report type now. So we have coverage fuzzing report. So obviously, now we see the crash itself here. So like this, now this page also parses our new JSON file. There is some more code that I need to add to our CLI to categorize the severity correctly. I didn't import it yet from Fuzzit, but it does parse the index out of range. Like this is the error that GoFuzz finds. So we can see that it's sleep fuzzer, it's coverage fuzzing, severity currently it's unknown, but it will be updated. Here we have the it's called the state, but essentially this is like a stack trace without random addresses for the crash. So the crash really happened here in the parse complex func. We can also see that in the logs. Yeah. Also, if we find more data, like I showed in the screenshots in the merge request. So there will be also address available, and I think, yeah, address and type of the. I think there is a bug here because it should also show like index out of range here, but for some reason now I see that it doesn't. It only shows it here for some strange reason. But we also should see the vulnerability type, which is index out of range. Yeah, so this is the current merge request. We still are not seeing, probably it will be in the next merge request, because we should also see this here and the security dashboard, I guess, because currently in the merge request, I'm only parsing the data from the JSON and I'm not saving it to the database. It might be the reason.
So the dashboard is only going to show what's on the master branch. So
no, but I ran it on the master branch. I mean, here, this is the master branch, and if I'm going to configuration, then I'll also see. Yeah, probably there is some small bug here, but here it's this is like the coverage fuzzing type, which is currently enabled, yeah, but it's not showing in the security dashboard because I think it's not saving it into the database, I assume. Yeah, so maybe ask questions and then I'll show. Yeah.
So one question in terms of functionality. So Sam, I saw that in this it fails the job, but it allows a failed job. I think all the other security analyzers always pass. I don't know if what we have here is accurate or whether we want to set the job status to pass.
Really the key point is we won't be able to fail the pipeline because we don't want to fail pipelines because of security. In terms of the actual job status itself, I would say we should be consistent with what all of our other scanners are doing. So if they're passing it, we can do the same thing.
Does that make sense? We want to set the exit status code for that job to be successful, even if you find a crash. So all we're saying is that the fuzzer ran successfully.
Yeah.
So the status code will be it'll be a 0 status code, so everything's fine.
Oh.
And then we'll still show security results. We're not saying that anything failed.
Yeah. Yeah, fine by me. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple pieces of feedback on the demo. I think this looks really good in terms of what we can show at the cab for this is the direction we're going in, even though VMR and everything is still in process. One suggestion for when you're reviewing the CI file, the YAML, I would either say speak to it or add a comment to describe what that parse complex is in there, or review the repository as part of the demo walkthrough, because as an audience member, it might not be immediately clear that's the code of the application itself. So that would be something that's good to highlight as part of the demo walkthrough.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think everyone here were in the previous demo, so I walked through the parse complex. But yeah, it's a good point. I'll add it to the video that I'll record.
Yeah. And also for the security dashboard for the project, for the purposes of the demo, I mean, I think showing just what you did with the modal dialog is probably fine to show like this is the direction we're going in. Because really the cab, this is a preview, so even if it's not in the project dashboard yet, that's okay, and it can be omitted if you want to record it before you're done implementing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks good. This should get folks excited, I think, when they see this.
Cool. Great.
I have a couple questions, and
sure.
I feel like I'm not. Let's see, me. Because I don't know, I think I don't know the answers to these questions because I've probably missed something in some of the issues and merge requests that are going on.
Yeah.
So the crash state, is that always the backtrace? I can't remember what we added, what field we added to the database. Like, I remember we had a discussion about specifically just calling it backtrace or stack trace.
Yeah. So the crash state is essentially a backtrace without the randomized addresses. I don't remember the discussion changing this name, but we can change it. The database MR, I'm not sure we will need it, at least for now, because everything fits quite good into the current design and architecture and database of the current security parsers and features. So this MR doesn't use any features of the first of the MR that I opened up like a few weeks ago when I just joined.
Gotcha.
And I'm not sure. I wasn't aware. I wasn't familiar with that code base and architecture. So I just added the database schema, and it was reviewed for a lot of weeks, and it's still being reviewed, but now it's on hold. So because actually this MR already is doing a lot of the work that because this MR should be merged first anyway, and then we can decide if we need new tables for the database.
Nice. My second, I didn't have time to, I didn't write it up while we were talking, but my second question is there a way to add a hash of the input somewhere, like even in the crash state, just so that you can link that specific crash to one of the crash files? So, even if it's manually, just saying this was the hash of the input.
So I think, let's see. At least, yes. So I can, I mean, maybe it's this one. I'm not sure.
I think it's where it says test unit written to. Oh,
yeah.
James, you're talking about having that value in the vulnerability, as we're calling them.
Yeah. And okay. I know we've got a discussion or a ticket elsewhere so that you can download it directly. But since that's definitely not going to be in the MVC, even just having the hash of the input so that you could manually look it up somewhere would be very useful.
Yeah, okay, it's a good point. I think we need to add it. Maybe not to this MR because this MR is big already, and with like front-end teams and back-end teams, and then once we have this MR, I think it will be very easy to add a new field, and it will be reviewed quickly. So, so I don't know where will be the right place to put this issue, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, to reproduce this issue, you look at the web console, and then you can download all the artifacts, which is great. That allows you to get to the same state. I think eventually what we want to be is looking at the screen, this page right here. That would be nice if that's all the information you need to reproduce this bug. So it would have the input and all the rest. That way, you know, users don't have to go and download all those other artifacts and try to go through it that way.
So are we talking about not putting the download button there then? Is that what we're talking about right now? Or are we talking about a different sort of download?
I don't think we don't want to get rid of anything. I think the question is, what does our end state look like post MVC?
To me, the end state would be the download button, and then just having the ID of the input somewhere within the vulnerability modal would let you look it up manually and download it. That's what I was thinking. Is that what you were talking about, Seth?
Yeah, so what I could see happening on here is, you know, you actually have the input value outputted on the screen. And then potentially, for example, you could have direct links in here for the corpus or for any of the other information. Because you know, if you go onto the screen, like this is great, but now you have to close this, you have to go to the web console, you have to download the corpus, you have to download all those artifacts, and then you're not really even sure how you go from all those artifacts to what we're seeing on screen. And so we should be able to connect those dots a little bit faster.
It may be hard to add the input value directly. Let's see.
And the input value, it can be.
How does input value looks like? Can anyone?
It could be binary data. Yeah. Actually, we could link directly to a file within a build artifact for the pipeline. We could do that right now. We don't need any new features for that.
Yeah, that's right.
That's probably the easiest way right now.
Yeah.
The one thing to be careful of with that is I think all the data that we see in the modal will get persisted to the database. And so any of the data persisted to the database, if you have links, we just have to be careful if they're linking over to assets or artifacts, because those artifacts may expire.
That's right.
To be clear, for MVC, we will show this modal window or not?
Yeah, I'd say yes.
Yeah, because it's already in the merge request.
Yeah. It's ready to go.
It's written already.
And we have the new kind of instant page, right? I'm not sure like it's alive or not. Did we consider that? Like not a modal window where like, I know that with the first class vulnerability and those stuff, we're changing to a new page. Right.
So I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with what Camilla is talking about. So if you go to the security dashboard, you've got a list of vulnerabilities. And then when you click on a vulnerability, it takes you to a dedicated page for that vulnerability.
Yeah.
I think we have to see where this ends up once we get this into the security dashboard. I think that the next step would be, you know, figuring out how to get this data persistent to the database, and then it's just what comes out of the box with that instance page. Likely, it's not going to have any of these fields, these custom fields that we just saw, which was a crash state, and I think you have one or two other fields.
So the instant page won't be on the pipeline area. So the pipeline will still have this modal window instead of the instant page.
I'm not sure. I think the answer is yes. So this pipeline, this data will need to get flowed through to the security dashboard.
Yeah, I mean that like for not only for fuzzing, but for all those scanners. And when they are showing in the list of this pipeline page, And when you click on it, the detail will still keep in the modal window instead of like also replacing this modal window with the instant page. There is no code like behind, this is ongoing.
I don't know, like, I don't know the direction of the modal versus the individual page. I don't know what Threat Insights is doing on that area. Sam, do you know if there's a move to get rid of the modal, or?
So the modal in the pipeline is still the same for all the scanners. It's when it's promoted to a vulnerability, it becomes a standalone vulnerability at that point. Does that make sense? So like if you click the modal there, does it have a promote to vulnerability option? Or, well, I guess create issue.
Yeah.
Well, creating an issue is different than a vulnerability.
Okay, so this is not integrated with standalone vulnerabilities, it looks like then. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, okay. We can, yeah. I don't know what, I mean, I don't know exactly what standalone vulnerability is, but I mean, I think I saw it in some of the discussions, but yeah, this is why we are not seeing this here, and this is what we'll have to add in the next merge request.
Okay.
And then I think it will be easier to maybe to discuss what exactly we want to do with the standalone vulnerability.
Okay. If we can go back, actually, I'm sorry, I still don't understand the direct answer on it. So if we're talking about pulling the modal into MVC, which was not in the original requirements, this is in addition to that download artifacts button that we agreed on in the initial designs, correct? This is not replacement of?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so yeah. My question was like...
Yeah, apologies if I keep asking that. I just wanted to be clear I was not making an assumption.
Yeah, so Sam, I think we're on the same page, but Sam, can you pull that page up, the design, just to make sure we're all talking about the same thing?
I'm going to send you the issue for it.
Or you can maybe send that to Evgeny and he can pull it up.
Yeah, since he's already got all the screen share open.
Yeah, so so Sam, I apologize. The benefit to this is this, almost all of this functionality came out of the box for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now I wasn't sure if this was just part of the demo or if this was in replacement of. So that's why I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no, the goal was not to replace it. The goal was as soon as we got the crashes into our JSON format, what we're seeing, most of it comes out of the box, and there were some tweaks that were made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only thing is that. So I saw the download button that we discussed, but I'm not sure who should add this button because this is a new functionality. So I'm not familiar with the front-end code base. I mean, I can try and find where to add it, but I'm not sure who should add this button. And then we should implement the backend somehow to download that report. Or maybe the report actually is already available, so I think it's only front-end work. Yeah, so we need to talk to someone from the front-end team to implement that for the MVC, as far as I understand, or if it is my job. So I need to know it, and then I need to figure out how to add this button. Yeah.
Yeah, and you and I can talk about this. I think Fernando is on this issue. So he's our front-end engineer that can work with you to get it into the front end.
Yeah, I think actually so he was on the call. I think he actually also messaged me.
Yep.
We might have so now I remember. Okay.
Yep. Sorry. So he can add it on the front end, and then if it's not available from an endpoint today, that's something you'll need to add to the back end.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So what should I open here?
So just to confirm, if you click on that first, what Sam's talking about is this download report fuzzing results. So our front end team will add that, and then they're going to need to hit an endpoint or get that data from the back end, which you'll need to implement.
Perfect. And I think that button, I don't think there is any new backend because we're just linking to the artifacts of the job.
Yeah.
So that URL you went to with the browse, we can just put the button to link to that.
So no, not to, I think, yes. So I also don't think there is any backend there, but it's also not in the artifact. It's in some different place where like the reports are stored, because here, because we are like, it's not an artifact, it's a report type. So we don't see the report here because this is just the artifacts, but like there is GL coverage fuzzing report uploaded.
Right.
And
this just got added. If you go to the pipeline view, so
yeah, so here, yeah,
yep.
You can download here, but actually maybe I missed something in the merge request, because there, I can download it, but of course it's available because we can see that the data is parsed at the screen.
Yeah, so this is kind of a quirk with the way that it's set up. So artifacts are, like you said, they're just files that get downloaded at the end of a job. And then if you're using the report syntax, which is what you have, reports are not part of the artifact collection.
Yeah.
If you want them as part of the artifact collection, you can actually just say, report name, and then you say artifacts path, and then give it the same file name, and it'll show up in the artifacts.
Okay.
But that actually duplicates the file. It's going to write it twice. So the code that you're seeing with the little download button here, that's what you will want to pull over to the other page.
Got it.
Or the option is we duplicate that file and add it to the artifacts.
Okay, we can look into this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we're probably better off linking to where this button is right here.
Yeah.
That way we're not duplicating the file. And then if people want all the artifacts, they can get it through that other navigation.
So we will be linking to those job artifacts, not the report itself, though, correct? Because the JSON report won't have all the pieces of info in it. It's that folder that has all the crashes and the corpus, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. Yeah, so we'll have to link to the zip that contains everything, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, but if we link to that, it won't have the JSON document.
But we can do, maybe we can duplicate it in the yeah.
If we duplicate it,
I don't know if the JSON's that useful for end users anyways, though, because they're going to see all the results in the modal and they can look at it, and then they can correlate that with the files. The crashes and the corpus documents, I think, are what's going to be more useful to them if we have to pick one or the other.
Yeah, but I think we can duplicate. It's not I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah, duplicating it is a one-line change to the YAML file.
Yeah.
So if we duplicate that report, then we can just link to all the artifacts if we want to do that.
Yeah,
so,
I'm good with that too.
So Sam, you're good linking to all the artifacts instead of just the JSON? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Camila, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I had a different question, but I just confirmed with Andy that like for the pipeline page, they will have the modal window for a while. And for the dashboard, we will have the instant page.
Okay.
But I do have another question. So
yeah,
like from the example that I got, there is a piece of data called traceback snippet. Is that something important that we want to show it to user, or not important information?
Which example?
I think you give me an example that I can download in like one of the JSON file called stack trace snippet.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
Huge long data. Is that important that we want to show? It help them in a way?
I'm not sure. If we want to show it in the modal, maybe it's a bit big. I don't know, because essentially it's available. Maybe we just want to link to the logs where you can see all the data.
So like, is this important for user to see?
I don't know. Sam, what do you think?
If it's important, we can think of way to display it like in the future, not in MVC, but like I want to know.
Seems like it's the only information that a user has in front of them to distinguish between different issues. Like if I was sorting through a bunch of these fuzzing results, I feel like for me it would be useful to see that stack trace so I can understand without having to download and then open the download and look at all the information, a little bit of what's going on.
Well, but we have the crash state right now, which is the stack trace, right?
Well, the crash state is a stripped down version of the stack trace, because it just like the last 3 functions usually.
I was going to say that did look pretty small.
Yeah, because like this is for helping like also for the backend to compare crashes.
Yeah,
we strip down.
In that case, Mike's
random
100% right. Definitely need that.
Okay, cool. I think that's.
Okay, so yeah.
I have another small question. So there are other 3 data that I didn't see there. Are same question, like crash address, crash type. Are those 2 are also useful for the user to see?
Yes, yeah. So for some reason in the current demo, it was missing. I'm not sure why. But
I think it was the title of the modal box.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, you're right. So if we go here in the screenshot, you can see. Oh, yeah. No, but actually here we can also have this in the description. So this is like the type currently, and here we have the crash address as well.
So description is crash type.
Yeah, the description is crash type, and I think it's like adhering to the current way of how we show vulnerabilities, because I try to click on various SAST and DAST vulnerabilities, and like the type of the vulnerability is at the title.
So we won't get like for other scanners, we get like some kind of words description, like what it is. So we won't get that type of data.
Yeah, I can almost see this turning into, if we wanted to do this at some point, the description being more free-form text about what the specific type of fuzzing result means. You know, if it's a heap overflow, that means that we should be pointing to malloc and calloc type calls and explaining that to users. It wouldn't necessarily be application specific context necessarily. I could see it being more as describing the type of issue that fuzzing found, because the individual fuzzing results themselves are going to be so specific, we won't be able, I don't think, to provide much more specific details there.
Right, or a link up to our docs that have a really good description of investigation, and
yeah, then I'm thinking maybe just call it crash tab instead of description. It's more useful for the user, so they know what it is.
Yeah, probably. I guess that we should do that. Probably it just was yeah, sounds good.
Last question. So I'm playing around to fit those data into the instant page, and instant page have like titles, and one of them is location. So only crash address belongs to location, right? Or even a crash address is not location.
Crash address is also location, yeah.
There's something else also location.
I think the location currently is how in the last merge request is crash. You can see, can also send I'll send the merge request in the chat here.
Those should be the same thing. Like if we're only talking about one location, and that's the crash location.
But I mean, the location usually is like, yeah. So 1 second. You can see in the merge request. Yeah. There is, I think, yeah, so it's a crash address, crash state, and crash type. Yeah, here, this is the like location is a keyword in the common schema, and every security parser or every security feature implements the like his what he uses for defining let's say a vulnerability, like a location of the vulnerability, let's say. So in Fuzzer coverage, on the coverage guided, I'm using crash address, the crash state, which is the stack trace, and the crash type. So like this 3 fields essentially tells where the vulnerability is located, right?
So would we be able to symbolicate this address that is pointing back to a function in source code rather than a hex address?
Yeah, so I think that this might be a very good feature for maybe I don't know, you decide for post MVC. There is for some of the fuzzers, there is support for combining source, exactly like source with the execution, so you can get better data.
Okay. Yeah, I think the post MVC thing is the answer I need there. I wasn't sure if this was something we just already had and could expose it, but if it's something we'll need to build, yeah, we'll definitely make an issue to work on that.
Yeah, so it's mostly something we need to integrate because like there is support. We don't need to build a new fuzzer. We just need to be able to support the lib fuzzer and coverage data. There is a feature, way of running lib fuzzer with a source and debug enabled.
Right.
I have a question about the MVC and the schema. So to me, the schema needs to cover both API fuzzing and coverage fuzzing. So maybe I'm misunderstanding something about solidifying the schema before the MVC. Is that what we're doing? Because currently they're being developed separately, and I'm not sure what to think about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so from a customer perspective, we do not need to have the schema be completely fixed. We won't be publishing that as the de facto way to interact with fuzz testing right off the bat. And I'm expecting it to change. I'll leave the technical decisions, what we want versus not want there, to you all though.
Yep, and that is that perfectly answers my question. Yeah, all right, cool.
Right.
Anything else? Otherwise, I think we're good to call it a meeting.
Hey, Seth, could I talk to you for 1 sec, since we have a couple minutes?
Yep, absolutely. Sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
Well, we will stop the recording and see you all later.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.